From a doomed planet in a distant galaxy to a fantastic underground hideaway, from the fortress of solitude to the bustling city room of the Daily Planet. Look, up on the screen. It's Superman. Superman, the movie.
Hello everybody, I'm Brevin Thompson.
And I'm Cameron Simpson.
And welcome back to my channel. And with this green screen effect, we decided to use the Fortress of Solitude. And in case this video has not made it clear, we decided to talk about Richard Donner's Superman from 1978. That starred Christopher Reeve, Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, so many amazing people. When it comes to discussing Superman, it's going to be difficult to add further what has already been said by various other people over the past nearly 50 years. It's like one of those movies that has inspired various filmmakers, especially with how they approach how to direct superhero movies. Various filmmakers have been inspired by what Richard Donner did with this movie. Sam Raimi, Christopher Nolan, Patty Jenkins, Jon Favreau. You could tell they were in some way took some tidbits from what Richard Donner did with Superman. That's how influential this film is. And I guess I should start off by talking about my experiences with this movie, how it impacted me as a kid and how much I think this holds up to today's standards. I remember first watching Superman on a VHS tape that my stepmom gave me for Christmas, I think. And at that point, I was only around 5 years old. And at that point, I was becoming a fan of superhero movies because of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and movies like Batman and X-Men. So I knew that this would definitely pique my interest. And the second I heard John Williams' music, I was instantly hooked. Christopher Reeve, a lot has been said about his performance as Superman, and for me, he is the definitive version of the Man of Steel. Just his mannerisms, just how he is in certain scenes, just not just as Superman, but also as Clark Kent. The way he changed his mannerisms as Clark Kent, and his personality as Superman. He's hopeful. He's helpful towards the community. He makes jokes, and he's that symbol that stands for truth, justice, and the American way. And that's what I love about Superman. And I think that's one aspect that the character does stuck so well with so many people. This role has been so important and such a big part of Christopher Reeve's legacy. So, how do you think that? What was your experience with Superman?
Well, to be honest, Brevin, it's a little hard to recall because it was a long time ago for me. But I also do remember vaguely the first time I ever checked that movie out. I think I was watching it with my parents on cable at one point. What basically more needs to be said about such an iconic film? But honestly, to me, it really was, I think, one of the best Superman movies I had ever seen. And as far as Christopher Reeve's performance goes, I agree with you. He's the definitive version of Superman.
If any of you out there have done a review for Superman and not mention John Williams' incredible music, you failed miserably. When it comes to John Williams' score for Superman, it's one of his most beautiful scores in my personal opinion. And there's a lot that has been said about John Williams over the years. And the best I can say is, I would say this is, top 5 best scores from John Williams in my personal opinion, because we all know, because Star Wars, Indiana Jones, E.T., Jurassic Park, Jaws, and Harry Potter, etc. But Superman is definitely one of his best. I mean, and it's the second you hear the first few beats of the main theme, you instantly know that it's Superman. Even if you haven't seen the movie, that's how iconic John Williams' music is.
Yeah, I completely agree, Brevin.
Yeah, and I think that theme is synonymous with Superman, and I'm glad that James Gunn is using tidbits of John Williams' music into his Superman movie, but with a bit more of a electrical guitar mix, because you can tell that James Gunn is heavily influenced by what Richard Donner did for Superman. So I'm very intrigued to see how James Gunn is gonna handle his Superman movie, because it looks incredible, but I'm just I just really hope it really turns out to be amazing.
Me too, because if I may say one thing on that subject, I expect great things, of course, from James Gunn's Superman, but I also know that there can be a lot of baggage sometimes with this particular version of the character given the circumstances of which it happened. But the thing is, to me, what makes a great film truly a great film isn't just the music you use or the actors or a lot of times even the characters, because to me you could have the best characters in the world played by the best actors in the world all at once. But if you don't know what to do with them and how to tell a good story with them, then it really just kind of feels pointless. But I really think that if anyone's got a good solid chance at being able to do that, it's James Gunn, and I wish him luck.
And after those opening credits, which in my opinion is one of the best opening credits of all time, we get to see Krypton, and I think that this might be the best looking version of Krypton.
And the movie opens after that with Zod and his cronies being put on trial on Krypton for basically all their crimes against Krypton itself, and then being banished to the Phantom Zone. And I think it's pretty interesting that they decided to open that way, because it sets things open for the sequel.
Yeah, and given that they were shooting Superman 1 and 2 simultaneously, which is something that was mostly uncommon in Hollywood, I could imagine was a difficult production to handle for Richard Donner and the crew. Shooting two Superman movies simultaneously, and I think that scene alone with Jor-El sentencing them to the Phantom Zone was good ways to set them up as the main villains for the sequel. So it builds up stakes. And when it comes to Terrence Stamp, who plays General Zod in this and the sequel, he gives one of the best supervillain performances in cinema. And of course, you get the iconic line in the sequel, "Kneel before Zod."
Yeah, I mean, I cannot even begin to tell you how many times I've heard that exact line by fans, in various pop culture media or just around the world in general, doing that as an intimidation tactic. It's just...
Or in some cases, comedy, like how they parody that in Robot Chicken.
Now, using your lower abdominals, raise your legs and hold on a 5 count before Zod. 1 before Zod. 2 before Zod.
Come to me, son of Jor-El. Kneel before Zod. The next scene pretty much makes it to where Jor-El is trying to tell the Council of Krypton of Krypton's inevitable destruction, but of course they don't believe him, and they just believe that Krypton is simply rotating its orbit. So Jor-El decides to send his son Kal-El to Earth in a spaceship.
Yeah, and the way he explains it to his wife Laura is that the planet's atmosphere will amplify his dense molecular structure, which will give him superhuman abilities. And his farewell to baby Kal-El is kind of heartbreaking in a way. And there's certain emotional moments in the film that definitely tug on your heartstrings, and especially in a later scene when Jonathan Kent eventually dies.
Yeah, the old die of a heart attack bit. I'm pretty sure all Superman fans know that story, but it never stops hurting.
Yeah. And of course, Kal-El eventually makes his way to Earth in Smallville. He's then found by Jonathan and Martha Kent. They adopt him as their own son, and they name him Clark. And of course, like over the years, that's when like Clark like develops his powers. And I like the moment of exchange between the teenage Clark and Jonathan Kent, where he kind of like gives him like a whole "with great power comes great responsibility" moment. So in a way, Jonathan Kent is Clark's Uncle Ben in a way. Shortly after the death of Jonathan, Clark gets a psychic call from a green crystal that was in his little space pod. He then decides to travel north, and he uses the crystal to create the Fortress of Solitude. And I think the look of the Fortress of Solitude is magnificent.
Me too. And I also just really think it's one of the ideal designs.
And when Clark goes into the fortress, he goes through like these types of like recorded messages that he gets from Jor-El, and over the years we see like this like moments of like it looks like Clark is like going through like space and time with Jor-El. I mean, at least that's what this scene is implying when we hear Jor-El speaking to Clark in this moment, like him like training to like use his abilities as like time is like it kind of like does like a 12-year time skip.
Well, I honestly don't know what the best way is to describe it, but if I had to guess, I'd say that that particular scene, of course, is Jor-El trying to explain everything and help Clark to learn how to use his abilities both the right way and just in general. But at the same time, I guess this is probably just one of those scenes in the movie where you get some backstory, but what actually happens in that sequence can basically be whatever you want it to be. But the undisputable fact is that by the end of it, Clark is a little older and he's wearing the iconic suit and flies for the first time.
It's definitely a great way to like introduce like the hero in full costume, because certain movies with origin stories kind of like do that at a similar length, like with this and Batman Begins, like doing a similar thing with the hero's introduction and on screen in full costume.
Clark finally starts his job for the first time at the Daily Planet, and honestly, I'm a little surprised, or at least I was when I was a kid, that they didn't automatically recognize him as Superman after all that. But at the same time, I understand now why that's the case. Apparently, it's not just the glasses and the suit that is the reporter's suit, I mean, that pretty much make him look different, but it's also apparently every time that he's Superman, he's strong, heroic, has this big sense of like, I can handle anything sort of thing. But when he's Clark, he has glasses on, which makes him different because Superman is not nearsighted, and also he's clumsy and a little goofy at times to kind of make himself feel weak, like, because you see how strong Superman can be by comparison, and it just makes you think, no, there's just no possible way a man as weak as Clark could ever be Superman.
Yeah. And it kind of makes me think of like that scene in Kill Bill, David Carradine as Bill, and that monologue, which is probably my favorite scene in that movie, where he explains like the mythology of superheroes and Superman. Like the staple of the superhero mythology is there's the superhero and there's the alter ego. Batman's Bruce Wayne, Spider-Man's Peter Parker, and when Peter Parker wakes up in the morning, he's Peter Parker. He has to put on the costume to become Spider-Man. And Superman stands alone in that characteristic. Superman didn't become Superman, he was born Superman, and his alter ego is Clark Kent. His outfit with the S, that is the blanket that he was wrapped in as a baby when the Kents found him. So that outfit is his clothes. And when he wears his Clark Kent, the glasses and the business suit is his costume. The costume that Superman wears to blend in with the human race. Clark Kent is how Superman views us. And what are the characteristics of Clark Kent? He's weak, He's unsure of himself. He's a coward. So Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race. And in a way, he was kind of right.
As they're walking across Metropolis, Clark and Lois get ambushed by this thug in an alley. I guess we all know what that story's kind of like. But anyway, Lois doesn't want to give the bag, so the thug tries to shoot her, and Clark, pretends to get hit but catches the bullet, and it's just kind of interesting. To me, it's like a little nod to the whole faster than a speeding bullet thing.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of hilarious for me.
Where he's just like, I think I must have fainted. and he just looks at the bully, he just does that little smirk.
Two of the most iconic stars that they could get at the time for this film were Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman, who of course played Jor-El and Lex Luthor respectively. And honestly, Jor-El's performance for me was spot on. When it came to Lex, it was an interesting version. He was funny, nefarious, brilliant. And often called himself the greatest criminal mind of our generation.
Yeah, and he definitely spits out his words, especially when he yells, "Mr. Smacker!"
Yeah.
And when it comes to Marlon Brando, he arguably has less screen time compared to Gene Hackman.
Yeah, but considering the fact that the character that he plays dies at the very beginning of the film, and then is mostly just a hologram inside the Fortress of Solitude, which we don't really get much time in, that does kind of make sense.
Yeah, and depending on which version that you watch, I mean, if you watch the special edition, I mean, we get more scenes with Jor-El, and of course, if you watch the Donner cut of Superman 2, I mean, his role is greatly expanded on, which I greatly appreciate. And when you talk about Superman moments that definitely stand out, especially in this film, you get the helicopter rescue that includes the iconic Superman shirt rip, him stopping these robbers, and that very funny moment where he catches a burglar when he's standing on the side of a building. Hi there, something wrong with the elevator?
Yeah.
Just his mannerisms. I mean, he's so polite. I mean, he's kind of passive aggressive in a way, but I mean, he's just so happy. I mean, this is the kind of hero that just enjoys what he does, is just saving people's lives. And of course, he saves save a cat who was stuck in a tree, saving Air Force One. And when it comes to the flying moments, I mean, are they dated? Sure. Does it harm my enjoyment of the movie? Of course not. But given that this movie was made in the late 70s, front production tends to date when you look at movies that use countless green or blue screen effects. But given what they managed to achieve back in the day, it's seamless still, really. When it comes to the moment where Lois interviews Superman and them later having that romantic flying scene shortly after that, just really nailed Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder's performance as Superman and Lois, and especially accompanied with John Williams' romance theme for Superman and Lois, captures that scene beautifully, which makes it one of the most romantic scenes in cinema history.
Yeah, and I honestly thought it was interesting that, one, they decided to basically, to me it felt like a lot of the flying was inspired by what they decided to do in the classic Peter Pan movie, but at the same time, they, instead of keeping it silent the whole time, you have Lois thinking about various things, what's going through her head, like if Superman can read her mind, and just what she's going through at the moment, just everything that she's taken in all at once, and she just can't believe it. I honestly just think that that's a real good thing to have in that particular scene, because if they kept her silent the whole time, it probably would have been beautiful, but it could arguably be boring.
Yeah, but that moment, I mean, it's just she's in love. I mean, you can see the look on her face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they ripped the shit from this scene for, I mean, when it comes to like flying scenes. I mean, they did that with Aladdin, they did that with How to Train Your Dragon, and etc. etc.
Yeah.
Because when you look at like certain flying scenes, I'm just like, uh, are they beautiful? Yes, but Superman was first, and I don't think like there's gonna be like a flying romance bonding moment that could top this, in my opinion.
Luthor really gets his moment to shine, so to speak, in his own diabolical way, because he has this plan to kind of like increase the stock market price, so to speak, of the land he's bought. All this land in the desert that a lot of people consider useless, by taking control of two convoys of nuclear missiles and programming them with different types of coordinates to strike at two different spots simultaneously and try to kill Superman with some kryptonite, which to me is just, wow, it's interesting because
Yeah. And the way that he explains his plan to Superman is kind of the way that a Bond villain would do. I mean, like it's kind of like what you would expect from a Bond movie. Is like the villain would explain his master plan in some villainous, well, like ish way before he attempts to kill Bond, and he kind of does some Bond villain stuff with the kryptonite, leaving Superman to drown and assuming that everything is just going to go according to plan. I'm just like, I mean, I do like Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor in this movie, but in this scenario, with him explaining his master plan and like leaving Superman to die and expecting that everything is going to go according to his plan, is something similar to what a Bond villain would do.
perhaps that plan actually would have worked completely if his assistant didn't decide to help him in exchange for saving her mom's life, who lives in the location of one of the missiles and where it's going to hit.
Yeah, because the way Luthor explained his master plan was like having, he wanted to have like two of the missiles hit the San Andreas Fault in California, so the missile would sink California, and the large amounts of desert land that he bought at ridiculously high prices would become his new coast of the United States. His bumbling henchman Otis messed up his tax and diverts one of the missiles to a different location, while Miss Tessmacher divert the other missile to the correct location that Lex wanted one of the missiles to hit. So,
yeah, I mean, that guy, no offense, no offense, I get that they were trying to, like, just put on a show, I suppose. I'm sure he did the best he could, but they basically created the village idiot of henchmen in Superman, anyway. Now we come to the grand finale of this miraculous motion picture. And boy, oh boy, is it a finale. I mean, really.
Massive understatement, especially when it comes to like Superman trying to minimize as much damage as possible caused by the missile, like hitting the San Andreas Fault, him like putting the vault like back into motion, trying to like save this bus from falling off of the Golden Gate Bridge, him stopping the flood, just doing everything he can to minimize the amount of destruction that the earthquake is causing. But Lois and this, during these disastrous events, is killed, and it's like one of those moments where you see the pain in Superman's face because of this loss.
What they decided to do was really something interesting for this part.
Yeah, but before that, I mean, that iconic scream, I mean, you could feel his rage and his sadness because of that scream right before he flies off, and right before Jor-El, I mean, we hear Jor-El's voice telling him that it's forbidden for him to interfere with human history. But at the same time, he hears Jonathan's voice saying that there's one thing that I do know, and that is you are here for a reason.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think that was necessarily Jor-El trying to remind him again about that. It was just him remembering what both of his dads essentially said, and he just decided to make a choice as best he could based on his own estimates, and maybe he should have gotten some punishment for that, but all things considered, I think as long as he does it as a one-off, it's okay, given the situation. And what he does, I mean, is just unbelievable. He starts circling the globe at hypersonic speeds, basically over and over and over again, until he literally stops and rewinds the rotation of the Earth, causing it to go backwards and pretty much rewind time to a point just before Lois died. Well, I knew Superman was fast, but time travel, I mean,
Yeah.
that was just unbelievable.
Yeah, some people have debate about the scene, and some people like it, some people think it's stupid. Personally, as someone who has loved this movie since I was a kid, I don't mind this. Do I think it's ridiculous? Maybe. Kind of stupid, but does it affect my overall enjoyment of the movie? Just like the effects, it doesn't. Because how the story is played out, and you want Superman to, like, undo what Lex has done, because you care about the characters, and that's, I mean, if you're invested in the story and the characters, that's where it hits you, really. And right after Superman drops Otis and Luthor to prison, and we get that moment where he's out in space, and cuts to him. It looks like he's like smiling at the camera, kind of like breaking the fourth wall, and then the movie ends. It could not have ended better than that. And Superman still remains like one of the best superhero movies of all time. It's one of the best movies from the 70s. It's just a great film altogether. Everything about it still works. Richard Donner's direction, John Williams' amazing score, the performances, especially with Christopher Reeve. Rest in peace. You are our Superman.
You were, was, will, and always will be our original Superman. And the one that pretty much defined, I think, the very essence of the character for many years to come.
Yes. And for some reason you're watching this video and you have not by any reason checked out Superman, do yourself a favor and watch Superman as soon as you can. And of course, Superman deserves an A+.
And if any of you guys want to know more about the man behind the cape with Christopher Reeve and everything, they recently created a documentary called Super Plus Man, a Christopher Reeve story that you can check out so that you can kind of see more about the actor's life, including his portrayal of Superman, but also everything he went through and the life he had ever since he got the role and ever since that accident happened that put him in a chair. It's truly, to me, that was the first time I knew about Christopher Reeve's role as Superman for most of my life. But that documentary to me felt like the first time that I finally got to know the man behind the cape for the first time. And it just was unbelievable. I am truly glad they made it.
Yeah. I definitely cried during certain moments in that documentary.
Me too.
And guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And we'll end up talking about certain Superman movies pretty soon, following with Superman 2. Definitely looking forward to that. And guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And if you want my thoughts on old or new movies, of course, you know where to find me. And also, I hope this experience hasn't put you off of watching videos on YouTube, but statistically speaking, it's still the safest form of entertainment.